Okay, the June 25th, 2020 meeting of the Woodbridge Township Board of Education will come to order. Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Sorry, here.
No problem. Mr. Molnar?
Here.
Mr. Sedana?
Here.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Here.
And Mr. Della Pietro.
Here. Okay, Mr. Secretary, as required by the Sunshine Law, please read the notice of meetings.
Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted as follows. January 29th, 2020, June 16th, 2020, emailed to the Home News Tribune, Star Ledger, and the Municipal Clerk's Office, posted in Avenel Middle School and the Board of Education Administration Building, also published on the school district website.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Ms. Anderson, please read the closed session statement.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to motion for the approval of the following closed session statement. In compliance with the Sunshine Law, the board must go into closed session in order to discuss subjects exempt from the public portion of our meeting. The discussions to be held in closed session will be regarding personnel matters. Additionally, the board will be reviewing the superintendent's evaluation. Any information regarding the closed session discussion will be released to the public when the reasons for discussing these matters in closed session no longer exist.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Molnar. I have a motion by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Molnar. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, seeing none, motion carries. Okay, at this time, we're going to retire to closed session, so we'll be back no earlier than 6:30. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll return to our regular session. Okay, please rise for a over silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the Republic, for
Stand.
one nation.
One nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Do I have a motion to reconvene?
No motion?
I have a motion by Mr. Molnar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Treeweiser. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay. Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Ms. Bourdain?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Molnar?
Here.
Mr. Sedana?
Here.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Here.
Mr. Velez?
Here.
And Mr. Della Pietro.
Here. Okay, Mr. Tamburello is unable to be with us tonight due to a work commitment, and Dr. Zaga had a family emergency, so he could be here with us tonight. So let's keep him and his family in our prayers. Okay, will someone make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting?
A motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Molnar, second by Ms. Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Mr. Secretary, please state for the record any notice of bids are received by the board.
No bids received at this time.
Okay. Okay, to facilitate the flow of this virtual meeting, all questions and comments from the public will be addressed after the presentation of all agendas. Okay. Okay, superintendent's agenda. Mr. Bader, do you have any recommendations?
Yes, Mr. President, I have 33 items to present to the board.
Do you have a motion for the superintendent's agenda?
I make a motion to move it.
I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Treadweiser. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Bourdain. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
On item number 29, I'm going to abstain in the name of JFK Rehabilitation Institute. Yes to all other items.
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar?
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro?
Yes. Okay, policy and planning, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Delapetro. The Policy and Planning Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, presents the following 6 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Harris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Molnar. Okay, are there any comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Delapetro?
Yeah, Mr. Harris.
I did plan on saying it, but I'll just reflect on these 3 items for the public's benefit for those viewing from home and who may not have the agenda in front of them at the moment. But items 4, 5, and 6, as Ms. Anderson, Vice President Anderson brought up last meeting, I want to highlight item number 4. We're officially recognizing and renaming the Colonial High School Fieldhouse as after former coach and now past Coach Joseph Martino, as well as number 5, Woodbridge High School's baseball field will be named after Harding Peterson. He was a baseball player and later had a distinguished career in professional baseball. And then finally, the Woodbridge High School track around the football field, that will be renamed in honor of Henry Shemicki, who recently passed as well, and through a popular effort and a well-organized petition, that gentleman is being recognized and was a very well beloved teacher at Woodbridge High School. So congratulations to the families of those 3 individuals who have since passed, but left obviously an indelible mark on the Woodbridge Township School District, and we thank them for everything they contributed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Thank you for pointing that out and bringing that up. It was a good thing that we did tonight. Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar?
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro?
Yes. Okay, curriculum, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Curriculum Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, presents the following 12 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Harris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Treeweiser. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar?
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro?
Yes. Okay, finance and insurance. Tamburello's not here tonight. It's someone that present his agenda.
I'll do it.
Okay.
Anybody else want it?
Yes, Mr. Harris. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll jump in. The Finance and Insurance Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and Business Administrator, presents the following. I did not have it down here yet. Looks like 12 items. I move for the adoption of the 12 foregoing items.
I have a motion on the floor, Mr. Harris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Treeweiser. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar?
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
And Mr. Della Pietro.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Harris, for moving that agenda forward.
No problem.
Okay, school safety and security, Mr. Velez?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Security and Schools Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, present the following one item. I move for the adoption of foregoing.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Velez. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Freewater. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Molnar.
Yes.
Mr. Sedana.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Yes.
Mr. Velez.
Yes.
And Mr. Della Pietro.
Yes. Okay, technology agenda, Mr. Santana.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Technology Committee, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, presents the following three items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Santana. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Velez. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
I do have a comment on item 3. When we first did the iPad initiative, and I was fully in favor of it, and I am not necessarily opposed to it now. However, I have not seen any data that states whether this has been a benefit or not to our students. Certainly, if the iPad format or the Apple format is something that the administration and Mr. Bader feel that are important for our students, it seems to me that we would certainly be able to maintain continuity by staying with Chromebooks in our current format and then making a Apple section in our STEM labs that we're putting in due to the bond referendum in the 5 middle schools. So if the Technology Committee has seen that data, I would certainly appreciate them forwarding it to myself and possibly the rest of the board who has not. But certainly $588,000 is a lot of money for us to spend. Regardless of the dollar amount, it really needs to be based on the results of the format that we're using. Mr. Sedana had brought up a very valid point that we need to be teaching students how to think and react to things on a broad scope, not based on a specific device. So I just thought I would bring that up. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Treewater. Okay, are there any other comments or questions from the board?
Mr. President,
Sedana?
to Mr. Treebwasser's point and to the to bring Mr. Bader into the fold as well, having one grade with Apple devices definitely creates diversity in the technological landscape. Even I was skeptical at first about the iPad initiative being there on the whole grade level, but I just want to clarify a few things that kind of worked out in our favor. And Mr. Callahan was part of that. I just want to mention his name for negotiating a very good deal on the return of the current iPads that we have, which will give us a lot more dollars to put back into what we're going to be purchasing, and it will actually be comparable to the prices of Chromebooks. So from a pricing perspective, it's definitely gotten better, a lot better than what I expected. From an academic perspective, I think all of our other grades are using Chromebooks except for this one grade. So I think that continuity will never be broken. Again, to see the exact data in terms of academics, whether it's academically helping them or not, that's something that we don't have concrete data on right now, but that is something that we can definitely look at in going forward. Considering what happened with COVID and everything, right now it's hard for us to even assimilate any sort of data that way. But to your point, I agree it was a big price tag, but once we realized what we were getting back for our current devices, I was convinced that this is the way to move forward. Thank you, Mr. Bader, Mr. Callahan, and Mr. President for yesterday's discussion with the technology agenda.
Okay. Okay. Are there any further comments or questions from the board? Roll call, Mr. Secretary?
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain.
Yeah.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana,
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser.
I'll be voting yes on items 1 and 2, and I will abstain on item 3.
Mr. Velez,
Yes.
and Mr. Della Pietro.
Yes. Okay. Cafeteria agenda, Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Cafeteria Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Business Administrator Board Secretary, presents the following one item. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Velez. Any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary?
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana,
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser,
Yes.
Mr. Velez,
Yes.
Mr. Della Pietro.
Okay, personnel agenda. Mr. Molnar?
Della Pietro, I'm sorry, did you vote yes? I
Yeah.
didn't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Okay, personnel agenda, Mr. Molnar?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Personnel Committee, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, presents the following. Tonight, I'll be moving 17 items.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Molnar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Treeweiser. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Secretary?
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bourdain,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana,
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser, do you have any abstentions?
Not according to my agenda.
In spring volleyball head coach Michael Henderson on item
Oh, I'm
6.
sorry. Then yes, I abstain on the name of Michael Henderson on the coaches.
Thank you. Mr. Velez
Yes.
and Mr. Della Pietro.
Yes. Okay, is there any old business that should be brought to the attention of the board? Seeing none? Is there any new business that should be brought to the attention of the board? Mr. Harris?
A few items. Does anyone else want to go ahead of me?
No, you can go. Go ahead.
All right, you've heard enough from me tonight already.
That's okay.
All right, I just want to recognize 3 items this evening real quick. Few plugs, in fact. The Woodbridge Township Recreation Department and the Woodbridge Township School District, once again, are partnering on their summer enrichment program. It begins on July the 20th. They are week-long courses available to all students throughout the district. They are fun and educational programming. They range between $75 and $100 per week-long course. Some of those courses include STEAM curricula, including robotics. There's digital, fine, performing arts, as well as the humanities, Spanish, French, and American Sign Language, as well as filmmaking. So parents, if you are interested, you could register through the township's website. I'll also ask the district if we could get that up on our website for promotional purposes, as well as perhaps we send out an email. I know those classes do fill up and ultimately do sell out. If there are any questions from parents, they could contact the Recreation Department at 732-596-4048. Again, the Woodbridge Recreation Department, for any questions, 732-596-4048. Again, you could register. The only way to register is through the website, so please check that out. Nextly, kindergarten registration. This is a major initiative. This will be the 3rd year of full-day kindergarten. Registration is ongoing. We're a little behind where we normally would have been in the past. However, you must make an appointment via calling this phone number, 732-568 5635. Again, this is the kindergarten registration number. It's 732-568-5635. There's an online application that you'll be required to complete before your appointment takes place. Basically, the appointment is to verify that all of your information is completed properly. Kindergarten is available to all young boys and girls throughout the township who are age 5 by October 31st of 2020. Enrollment is on a first-come, first-served basis. All students will be accepted who qualify. However, the earlier you get registered, the more likely you are to get your home school. Otherwise, you'll go to the overflow school number 24 in the Island section of town. So please be mindful of that. So if you have a family member, friends, neighbors, colleagues whose child is eligible for full-day kindergarten, make sure they register as soon as possible. This way, our staff is not burdened or overrun, if you will, at the back end of the summer. So please, they are there all summer long. Please don't hesitate to get your child registered as soon as possible. And lastly, I had mentioned this a meeting or two ago. It's regarding the 2020 census. This is a vital program that's administered every 10 years by the federal government. You are required to fill out the census. None of your data is used for tracking purposes or anything of that nature. It's all confidential. Woodbridge, we are performing above the state average at 67.9% completion rate. Obviously, we're still 30 points below where we should be at 100% completion. So everyone out there who has not completed your census, please do so as quickly as possible before we lose the opportunity to secure federal funding for school programs such as the school lunch and breakfast programs, special education grants, child care grants, and foster care money. So again, this is federal money that New Jersey will be able to access by a robust census completion. If you have lost your mailer that you should have received late March, early April, you could go online and complete your census. It takes 8 to 10 minutes at 2020census.gov. Again, that's 2020census.gov. If you do not have a computer or internet access, you could call the census at 844-330-2020. Novel of them. Again, the phone number is 844-330-2020. Thank you, everybody, for completing your census thus far. This supports the state of New Jersey in many capacities, including our schools. So thank you, Mr. President, for your time this evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Any other new business that should be brought to the attention of the board?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bourdain?
if I may, unfortunately this year our POAC walk was postponed due to COVID, and they've decided to do a virtual walk on July 19th from 11 to 12. We are collecting donations virtually, obviously, this year. If you contact PACE Parents Organization, you can find us on Facebook, or PACE Parents Organization at Gmail, or you can contact me to find out more information. If you're a team captain, they're having a drive-through party, a socially distanced party at Blue Claw Stadium. If you're a team captain, there's a lot of advantages to raising money for POAC. POAC is parents of autistic children, and they do a lot for our district, our special needs, not just autistic kids in our district. They do a lot throughout the state. They do trainings, fun days out. They do a lot of things for our kids. So we try to give back to them by raising money, and this year has been extraordinarily difficult to do that. So if you contact me, I can guide you into being a captain or a team, or just to donate to POAC. I know it's a difficult time to ask for money, but they really need it. They do so many things throughout the state for all kids, really. So again, if you contact PACE Parents Organization on Facebook, or by email, or contact me, I can help you and just give you general information about POAC if you're unfamiliar with them. So again, that's July 19th, virtual walk, and more information to follow. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other new business from the board?
Mr. Della Pietro, if I may.
Dr. Massimino?
Just want to piggyback off what Mr. Harris had mentioned about central registration in kindergarten it looks like when we return back from the July 4th break, we will have in-person registration, obviously with modifications that are consistent with the CDC guidelines. So we are working on that to try to further facilitate getting the incoming kindergarten class registered. Obviously, with the COVID, we are behind and we want to proceed safely and cautiously, but we understand parents' desire to get their kids registered and ready for next school year. So to Mr. Harris's point, I encourage you to go on the website, complete the application, get everything done that you can get done remotely, leave a message on the phone. One of the secretaries will get back to you. And then once we have all of the proper precautions in place, and we're hoping right after July 4th weekend, we'll have modified in-person registration. So we will keep working on that, and hopefully we'll have an update, for the next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Massimino.
Thanks, Doc.
Mr. Harris?
Oh, no, I was saying thank you, Dr. Massimino.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, anyone else? Any new business for the board? Okay, I'm just going to back up a little bit. Ms. Murphy, do you have any recommendations? I skipped over you by accident. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Nothing for open session. No, I do not.
Nothing? Okay. Again, any other new business? All right, moving on. Okay, in keeping with our past practice, we will open this portion of the meeting for questions and comments from the public. If you wish to say something, please call 732-602-8472 or 732-602-8550. When prompted, please provide your name, the section of the township which you reside, and please limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes in accordance with Regulation 1100D. I will not answer any questions until you have completed your 5 minutes to allow you the full opportunity to say what you need to say so as not to interrupt your time. Okay, we'll wait.
We're waiting. Yep. My understanding is there is somebody in the queue, so I'm just going to a second to get them transferred over. All right. Hello, please tell us your name and where you're from.
Hi, my name is Cherry Daramola. I am a resident of Seawarren. I'm here today to present a list of demands created by current and former students from Woodbridge Township School District. We believe that education is a right, not a privilege, and for Black, non-Black, disabled, non-Black students of color, disabled, LGBTQ+ identifying, and or low-income students in particular, we believe that their well-being is worthy of investment. Our demands are nothing new, and many of these demands should have already been implemented to protect the well-being of all students and to maintain this district's vision of engaging the entire community in instructing and inspiring our students to be successful and significant beyond our classrooms. We demand that you listen and understand that this is about students' lives at stake, which should matter to all of you. Our first portion, we have divided it into 3 sections. So we have policing, academics, inclusivity, and accessibility. The first portion is policing. We demand the removal of police from all Woodbridge Township schools. Police do not keep us safe. They promote fear and perpetuate harm for Black students at school. We demand police-free schools, and we want to replace policing with a community-led accountability process and a transformative model of public safety. Other schools have successfully done so, and we should too. We want the money spent on police to provide students with legitimate school counselors to help them with the issues they face. We would like counselors that focus on race, inequity, culture, gender, sexuality, and socioeconomic status, also known as SES, immigration, and more, to ensure that student needs are met. Our current counselors primarily focus on making schedules and helping students with college. While that is important, students need support for their mental health to be at their best. We demand that Woodbridge Township School District divest from the prison industrial complex. WTSD must do a clear analysis of which resources provided to students are contributing to the mass incarceration of Black people and send a detailed report to families and members of this community. We ask that they look at every sector of their budget to ensure this township is not contributing to the prison industrial complex, also known as PIC. It has already been brought to our attention that WTSD uses the Compass Group to provide food to students, but this same company profits off of the mass incarceration of Black people. We demand that the district stop supporting this and find other food options to give to students. Number 3, we demand that WTSD remove student lunch debt. No child should be in debt because they cannot afford to pay for a meal. Many students rely on school for a meal, and punishing students who have lunch debt with not receiving a diploma, receiving grades for the next quarter, or other disciplinary actions is classic. Some families do not have the means to pay off the debt. Additionally, being denied food because of financial reasons impacts students' ability to do work and causes shame. We should focus on finding ways to support families who are food insecure rather than punishing students and families with debt. Number 4, we demand the removal of military, Air Force, or any armed services recruitment from our schools. Number 5, we demand the disciplinary rules be changed as many disciplinary policies aim to police Black students and non-Black students of color. The school-to-prison pipeline describes the way in which harsh disciplinary and municipal policies in schools increases the number of student incarceration, in particular zero-tolerance policies that do not listen to what students are actually going through. Discipline policies include discipline referrals, in-house suspension, out-of-school suspension, expulsion, ACS, detention, and other forms of discipline. This is due to the adultification of childlike behavior in Black kids that is criminalized. These disparities, when compared to students and their white counterparts, explain how exclusionary school discipline pushes out Black students in schools and causes frequent interaction with different forms of police systems. These disparities are shown in statistics like Black girls are 6 times more likely to be suspended and 2.7 times more likely to be referred to juvenile systems. Black boys are 6 times more likely to go to prison and 3 times more likely to be suspended. Black differently abled youth are 3 times more likely to be suspended. This is data from the You Can Too program that aims to help Black children, which is founded in New York. The next portion is academics. We demand WTSD to stop tracking students and provide transparent information regarding different courses available to guardians and students. In addition, we demand transparent data about which students are taking certain classes based on race, gender, disability, and SES for each school. Number 2, we demand WTSD hold teachers accountable for the discriminatory and racist actions. Number 3, we demand WTSD implement transformative and restorative justice practices to hold students, teachers, and administrators accountable. Restorative justice calls for all parties involved to discuss harm and how to resolve the issues, and gives room for learning and unlearning. Countless times, students who have said and done harmful things to students are simply given ACS, detention, or other forms of disciplinary action that leave no room for accountability for the harmed individual or individuals to express how they feel. We want community accountability where we focus on addressing the violence directly and finding ways to help both parties involved. Number 4.
Hey, not to interrupt you, but your 5 minutes is up.
Party to look at curriculum to ensure that it is anti-racist.
Okay, your 5 minutes is up. Okay.
Oh, 5 minutes is up?
Yeah. Okay. What I would recommend is, I mean, obviously you have a long list of items. Contact the superintendent, Dr. Zaga. Put your list together. Contact Dr. Zaga, and he'll meet with you, and you can discuss your concerns with him, because he will be the one who'll be able to handle that. Right now, he's out. If you give him, maybe if you contact him Monday, when he comes back, he could be able to, talk to you and address a lot of your concerns.
Mr. President?
Go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to thank the lady for spending the time and effort to put together a very thoughtful statement. And I was wondering if she could be able to pass the statement on to the rest of the board, because there were certain parts that were cutting in and out. And I'd certainly like to be able to review it in its entirety. And certainly if she would like to sit down with myself or anybody else on the board that is interested, I'm sure we can make that happen with your approval, sir.
That's fine. Are you still there?
Yes.
Okay. Could you email that to the board members and also contact Dr. Zaga? Well,
yes.
So that we can meet?
Okay.
Okay? Okay. I thought maybe we lost you.
Oh, no, you didn't. I'm still here.
Okay. All right. Yes. Yes. So yeah, if you can do that, email us, and then, like I said, Dr. Zager should be back Monday. So you just contact him, and then we'll work it out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for calling.
No problem.
Thank you. See if there's any more. Maybe there's some more coming potentially. Can I check? All right. Hello, please tell us your name and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Megan Brown. I'm from Colonia.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi. I would like to start off by commending the school district and the teachers for their management of the COVID-19 pandemic. I think it was handled as well as it could have been. My daughter attends kindergarten at School 26, and the teachers and staff were available and responsive to any questions or issues that I had. So thank you. Tonight, though, I would like to discuss the presence of police in our schools. I want the school district to immediately address the overfunding of security in our schools. It was unclear from the budget that I reviewed from the 2020 to 2021 budget how much is spent on the salary for security, how many.
Nope. I believe the person was lost. We'll see if that person calls back. We'll see if there's other calls in the meantime.
Okay.
We were able to get the person back, so they'll be joining us again in a second. All right, you're back with us.
Okay. I don't know where I was. Should I just start over? I have it written down.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Did I get to tell you guys how good of a job you did over the...
Yes, it was about a minute in. You were about a minute in.
Okay. What's that?
You were about a minute into the call.
Okay. So I was talking about the budget and how much is spent on security, and I was just trying to figure out from reading it what is spent on school resource officers, whether they're SROs or the Class 3 retired police officers, whether they have guns or other means of armament, how many incidents they deal with and where their incident reports go, and whether those incidents are disproportionately affecting Black and other children of color. Those are just a few questions that I had. I'd also like to say there are many evidence-based alternatives to having police in schools, such as restorative justice programs, a program called Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, and having mental health counselors and other support staff available when students are acting out. I know the coming school year will be fiscally tighter due to the coronavirus crisis, and I ask that you redirect funds from security to these more alternative strategies that can make schools safer and are more welcoming for all students without police. Thank you.
Okay.
So that's it. I'm good.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Mr. Harris?
Can I wait? Megan, thank you for the compliment, and thank you for joining us this evening, and to the last caller as well. On the police issue, we'll provide some deeper explanation at the next meeting, but I think it should be noted, and perhaps the previous caller, who I suspect was a student, would know this, is that while the police are present, they don't take a disciplinary approach. They're not responsible for discipline. They are there for security purposes. And when I was first elected in November of 12, about a month later, Sandy Hook Elementary happened. I think that's synonymous in American education, of course. I was in middle school when Columbine happened. Unfortunately, every time a mass shooting occurs in school districts, there's always, frankly, public support for more police and more levels of security in our schools. So going so far as to removing them, I don't think, at least in my opinion, I can't speak for anybody else, is not going to be a particularly palatable decision. However, we could perhaps provide a little more transparency in terms of the presence of the police and their roles within the schools. They're largely ensuring the security of the perimeter of the buildings and things of that nature. We will, when speaking with the student, as Mr. Treebwasser said, along with perhaps other students, we'll provide greater transparency to the extent possible, and ensure the public that the police are not there to intimidate, harass, or frankly, punishment. That is for our administrators and teachers to do. And the police only act at the discretion of the building principals. So I just wanted to clarify that for yourself this evening, as well as the public who have heard this. And again, perhaps for the July or August meeting, we'll be prepared to provide any greater clarity. Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to throw in those that 2 cents there.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Yeah, Mr. President.
Mr. Molnar.
If I kind of piggyback on what Mr. Harris said. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mr. Harris. The officers that are on patrol, and we've always took a stand on this board about not, relaying to the public what our security plan is, so that people, who want to do harm to our students don't listen in to pick up on a pattern. But you're absolutely right. They're not there to discipline students. If there's an incident inside the school that needs police activity, the police are called from the station. The police on patrol, and I'll go as far as saying this, are to stay on the patrol of the outside of the buildings. And you're right, when Sandy Hook took place, that is when, well, actually right before, Woodbridge was proactive in putting in the position of the safety coordinator. And, there was a lot of debate back and forth. I remember, and I always tell the story that the funding for that position was battled in that budget year against adding more textbooks. And then a couple months later, we had the tragic shooting in Sandy Hook. And then it was security, 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 security. I understand what the public is trying to say out there. I know what's going on, but I think we have to balance what the real concern of the public is. Don't lump that in with security. When we come to security, we're talking cameras and all the implementation we put in to make your child safe every day. It always happens. Sandy Hook, we never thought anything like that would ever happen again. The murdering of 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. And then you have Parkland, and then you have all these incidences that take place. And so before we start saying, let's scrap security, let's think about the nuances. I understand what's going on. That's different than security. Don't lump in what's going on with the stripping of security of our buildings, because your children are in those buildings every day, and we put the pieces in there for your child to be safe. The officers are not in the building to harass, to confront with the students, for the administration to call the officer. That's a completely different level. The officers that are assigned in our safety procedures are there to keep the perimeters of the building safe. So that's what I just wanted to say, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr.
President.
Mr.
Mr. President.
Mr. Treewatch, go ahead.
Just in accordance with what Mr. Harrison and Mr. Molnar had said, our school district takes a very different approach than other districts. We don't believe in having SROs, which is school resource officers, dealing with the student issues. We have student assistance counselors. And we recognize the importance of having people there that are trained and have the ability to deal with circumstances that may come up. And we also agree that there is a place for counselors and there's a place for police officers. And I think, you know, if the feeling is that we need to revisit on some of the methods that we utilize, you know, we are absolutely not a closed-minded group at all. We are certainly looking for ways to improve on whatever we do. But certainly we recognize that student assistance counselors are certainly an important and integral part of our district. And that is why we have, as Mr. Molnar said, perimeter security. And then we have other individuals that are specifically delegated to deal with the students on an as-needed basis. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Can I say one more thing? Because I think I still have like a little bit of time. I just want to say one more thing, that I don't think people are talking about less security. I mean, from what I've been reading and what I know, because I was in middle school when Columbine happened and when Sandy Hook happened. You know, I was in high school or at college, but I think more like bystander training, so children that go to these schools feel comfortable talking to other adults, because they're the ones that are usually the ones that are able to prevent these tragedies from happening, because they are associating with the people that, not the people that come in from the outside, but if there are children inside the schools that are going to do something dangerous or violent, that they're going to be the ones that are able to tell a trusted adult and tell them, you know, so-and-so talking about committing suicide or having a gun or something like that, and they're able to tell somebody that they trust. So more people like that in the schools, more trusted adults, is I think what I was specifically talking about. So.
Okay.
Okay.
And Mr. President, I'll say I agree with you. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's something that we could, you know, again, we could look at. It's, you know, everything's on the table. We constantly reevaluate our program. So, I mean, we'll look at it, and yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah, and I think we all know this is a tough time right now for everybody, for everything. So, you know, the fact that you're listening is very helpful. So thank you.
Your comments are valuable. We take a lot of value to it. I mean, you know, we'll look at our procedures, and again, this is what makes us better. I mean, we've seen one way, and we get it. You know, you give us a different view. You know, that's how we get progress. So no, I welcome your comments, and thank you for calling. You know.
Yeah, my daughter's only in kindergarten, so you know, I've a lot more time here to have 2 other kids coming up. So I'm going to potentially be here helping you guys make things better for like 25 years.
That's okay.
So thank you.
Listen, we're in it together. So
I'm going to hang up now.
Okay. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Any other callers, Brian?
All right. We're going to see if there's more.
Okay.
Okay. It's coming in. Hello, please tell us your name and where you're from. Hello? The person seemed to have dropped off. We'll see if we can get them back. They dropped off.
Okay, they dropped off. Yep.
We're having another call come through.
He's coming back.
Okay. We were able to reconnect with the last caller, so we'll be back in a second. All right. Hello, you're with us now. Can you please tell us your name and what part of town you're from?
My name is Amber Jarrett. I am from Woodbridge proper. I want to begin by saying I think it goes without saying that COVID-19 has presented many challenges to our school system. As a result of this health crisis, educators have had to rethink and redesign how to educate our children, how to continue to meet their needs, and how to safely celebrate their accomplishments. Unlike COVID-19, however, the existence and prevalence of systemic racism and oppression is not a new crisis. It is a crisis that is a deeply embedded part of our society. It has, since the existence of public education, infiltrated our schools and impacted the futures of children. Like COVID, however, it requires you as district leaders to rethink and redesign how our students are educated and how you will appropriately and equitably meet their needs. It is a crisis like COVID that demands immediate attention and action. At the June 9th meeting, I proposed several actions for the district to consider to more adequately address issues of racism and bias in our schools. Since that board meeting, I had the opportunity to join an equity committee meeting with Dr. Massimino, Dr. Zega, Ms. Anderson, and several other district staff members and administrators. And I just want to quickly thank them for including me in that meeting. I appreciated that. After the meeting, though, I also reached out to Dr. Massimino to suggest that he involve students and other community members and organizations in this process and on these committees. I'm hopeful that he and the district are taking that recommendation into consideration. Effective school change requires the involvement of multiple diverse stakeholders. It cannot be accomplished in isolation and without transparency. In that regard, since the last board meeting, I have started a parent group to help effectuate change in our schools and to provide another level of accountability to the district. You've heard from some of those parents already, and you will be hearing from some of the other parents in that group tonight. I know many of them would be more than happy to work with and collaborate with the district to move towards increasing inclusivity in our schools. I've also been communicating and working with former students. It's because of those conversations and communications that I'm calling tonight. In our discussions, it's become evident that there is a need to conduct a comprehensive school culture and climate assessment in our district. As I stated at the last meeting, the experience of the students who organized the recent rally are not unique. In order to successfully effectuate change, it is imperative for district leaders to hear and learn more about the experiences of students who have been impacted by racial injustices in our schools. We would recommend the district involve a third party in this assessment to ensure more authentic results. We would also recommend that the district use the data collected to engage in a collaborative, community-wide process of improving our schools by creating targeted action plans and sustained efforts focused on the issues identified in the assessment. The district I work in has already partnered with the organization Social Justice Matters, and through that partnership has started to conduct virtual listening tours. These tours are providing a platform for current and former students to share their experiences and to engage in discussion. Because not all students and staff members are comfortable openly speaking about their experiences, there are also several widely accepted research-based survey tools that are available and can be utilized to gather confidential data about the experiences and perspectives of students and staff members in our district. While I realize COVID-19 continues to present challenges and is going to require a lot of planning for potential reopening in the fall, this work cannot just be cast aside until a later time. The emotional and psychological trauma that accompanies years of repression, injustice, and belittling and dehumanizing experiences at the hands of classmates, educators, and those in positions of power and authority have been well documented and have far wider societal impacts. Silence and inaction only perpetuates these systems of injustice. The time to do better is now. So along those lines, I'm calling tonight to ask what you are planning on doing as a district to uncover just how pervasive of an issue racial bias and injustice is in our schools. Specifically, are there currently plans to conduct an authentic assessment of the district's culture and climate? And if so, what are some of the steps that have been or are being put in place to accomplish these goals? Those were my questions, and I just want to throw in there to go off of Ms. Brown's comment earlier about school shootings. Parkland, by the way, had an armed officer. I mean, historically, they have not stopped school shootings. Mental health is what stops school shootings. But I just want to throw that 2 cents in there as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. Dreiser?
would Ms. Jarrett be able to forward us her comments? It was very helpful the last time she sent it. Certainly appreciate her well thought out and well organized thoughts. And without Dr. Zega here, I don't know that any of us are prepared to answer that question without his briefing from the meeting, unless Dr. Massimino has been instructed to do so.
I would be more than happy to send them to you. I was not aware, obviously, that Dr. Zega would not be here tonight, so I understand. And I could certainly email that to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Dr. Massimino?
So I don't want to speak out of turn, obviously, without Dr. Zega being present. I think there are some issues that, as a superintendent, he needs to address and needs to get up to speed on. Obviously, I think if Ms. Jarrett can send that. I do want to thank her for being part of our equity committee. It was great to have the parent perspective, and she's also an educator, so she wears multiple hats. So I want to thank her for her participation. We just concluded today our 3rd day of diversity and equity training. We had Dr. LaShawna Dean from William Patterson provide a 3-day series. It was 2 hours for the last 3 days with, we could invite 100 people on our Zoom, so we invited 100 administrators, counselors, student assistance counselors, teachers, equity committee members, all district staff to really start to educate them and train them to get comfortable to have this discussion, which we thought was a very important first step. Obviously, when Dr. Zega returns, we'll be able to sit down with him and start to plan out what the next few weeks and months look like. Obviously, the COVID-19 restrictions and not having a clear picture of what September looks like right now it is an obstacle, but I do agree with Ms. Jarrett. There are things that, we do need to discuss and do need to have in play that we can plan for. So again, when Dr. Zega returns, that'll be a conversation that I think as a board and as a district we can have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Massimino.
Okay. All right. Thank you. See if there's some more calls. I believe there are a few more coming in. Hello, you're on. Can you please tell us your name and what part of town you're from?
Yes, my name is Kiana Davis. I am in Avenel, and I have one child in the Colonia Middle School.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, my concern is, my question is, when is the district going to be complying with the Amistad curriculum? Because I've had now 3 children in the Woodbridge Township Public Schools, and during this time, they have not had any Black history curriculum at all. Now, I know the Amistad curriculum, the Amistad Act is passed in New Jersey as far as all schools in New Jersey are supposed to implement Black history, and that is not being done in these schools at all. So my question is, how are you going to implement that this school year?
Mr. President.
Bader.
Mrs. Davis, I'm John Bader, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum. I apologize that your children have not received that education, you are correct. That is a mandate. I will be speaking. If you could email me specifically the classes and grade levels that your children are in, it is in the curriculum, and I assure you it is being done. I do not know why it was not done in your child's class, but we will rectify that situation, look into it. My apologies.
Also, what are we doing as far as the anti-racist curriculum as well as training for the teachers as well? What is being done in regards to that?
I can attest.
The district absolutely needs to, make changes on teacher training and anti-bias curriculum as well as training for teachers. So what exactly is the district implementing for the coming school year?
Mr. President?
Mr. Bader.
Ms. Davis, it is ongoing that we continue to have training. The most recent training that we had as a district was LGBTQ training, which is ongoing. And again, our professional development day coming up in October will continue that series. I can attest to the quality of the training that Dr. Massimino and Dr. Zega and the Board of Ed approved with Dr. Dean, and the equity training that she has done. And I'm sure that is, a first step in something that will certainly be continued and really spread across the district. Those trainings were recorded, so I know that, we will be sharing that with teaching staff, on an ongoing basis. So it is probably the most, beyond student safety, the most important thing that we can do is give every child the opportunity to succeed, give every child, what they need to grow and be successful adults in this community. So we are addressing it on a daily basis, and we will continue to do so.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bader.
All right. All right, thank you for your call.
Thank you.
See who else is waiting for us. Hello, you're on with us, and please tell us your name and what part of the township you're from.
Hi, my name's Angelique Holt. I live in Woodbridge proper. I am a mother of 3 children that have been through the school system. 2 are currently in high school, and my oldest daughter graduated last year from Woodbridge High School, and actually Mr. Bader was her principal, so I just want to shout out everybody. I know this is a great group of people, and I do appreciate everything you guys do for the kids. But I'm calling today to speak on behalf of my Black children who did go to these schools and some of the experiences that they've had, and just the ineptitude that we all have as white people. And hopefully, I know you guys are working on some training, and that's great to hear, but it needs to be more than on a voluntary basis. We really do have to dig in deep and make sure that we are pushing this curriculum, and that not only are we training our teachers, but we can promote that inclusiveness and that diversity in our classrooms and togetherness with these children, because our cultural climate right now in the United States in general is just being torn apart, and our kids are hurting. And my oldest daughter, who just recently graduated, was in the gifted G&T program, and she experienced a lot of issues with Mr. DeLuca. And I was going to refrain from saying his name, but at our last Black Lives Matter rally, his name was brought up again. And it really sat painfully clear to me that our teachers are just so unaware of how this affects our children. Bringing the political stuff into the classroom, challenging them, challenging a Black student on what racism is and if it even exists should never happen. And that just speaks to how unaware we are of the climate and how unaware we are of how deep these roots go with these kids and the things that they experience. My son is turning 16 next month, and he's already been called the N-word. He's already been labeled. Being next to him in an aisle in a store, I've had a store employee in our town let him know that the cameras are watching him. And in the climate we have right now with police brutality, our children are terrified of police. So I think just to mirror what some of the other parents are saying is, in this particular climate right now, we need to do a risk assessment. Are we more in danger of having white children come and shoot up our schools, or are we more in danger of having our Black children further traumatized by constantly feeling that you know, their people, these power roles over them are not aware of what's going on and not there to protect them, and then that they're being policed. So not to accuse anyone of anything, I'm just saying if we can be more aware of what they're going through this training and through inclusiveness and really reading any books that are available out there. There's a great reading club that we all joined called Courageous Reading, and a lot of people in the town are digging in and getting well-versed in anti-racist literature. And we just have to do the work. To say that we're the best town around, that requires that we're the best town around for everyone. And I just hope that you guys see how important it is, and I think you do. And I just want to keep living here and hope my children can be happy and graduate in school and have the same, feeling about the town as the white children do. So I just want to thank you for your time, and I wanted to say that. And that's it.
Okay.
Mr. Della Pietro?
Dr. Massimino?
Just to address the last caller's, she made a great point about the training being voluntary. The reason why the training that was offered this past week was voluntary is because it falls outside of the teachers' collective bargaining agreement. They're obviously on summer vacation, so we can't mandate anything formally at this point. The administrators are the only ones contractually obligated at this point, but we wanted to open it up to everybody to at least get a jumping off point. To her point, it will become mandated once we are back, under the guise of the teacher's contract, which is essentially September, and they're back into their normal routine. But I don't want there to be, and I'm glad she brought that up because it's a great point. It's voluntary for some of the staff this past week simply because they're outside of their contract. They may have scheduled vacations. They're not obligated or mandated to be part of it at this point. But once they are back in school, it will become part of the mandated training.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Great.
Mr. President.
And thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I probably don't have any more time, but I just wanted to mention the way that we've taken on the bullying, the zero tolerance policy with the bullying. I know that incidents are generated every single time one of those things happen. And that's not happening when you have racial incidents in the schools. And I think it's so important that we have an accountability and reporting and tracking system. If we are able to implement it locally or if we have to go to the state, but something, like how we do with the bullying and zero tolerance policy, to let our Black and brown students know and their parents know that when this type of incident happens, counselors are going to come in, we're going to talk to them, we're going to report that incident, we're going to reprimand our teachers if we have to. But how do we know it's being done if we're not reporting it and tracking it and tracing it? So thank you so much for that, but I just wanted to throw that in there.
Mr. President.
Mr. Molnar.
Chair to Dr. Massimino, how was the attendance on the voluntary basis?
So we invited roughly 100 people, Mr. Molnar. We had around 70 on any given day between the administrators, the counselors. Again, this was something we had been working on this prior to distance learning. Obviously, the distance learning put a little wrinkle in the plans, but we were able to secure Dr. Dean's presentations for this past week. So I would say we had about a 70%, which, considering that only the administrators were contractually obligated, it was successful in terms of we have a starting off point.
Good, thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. Bader.
thank you. I just wanted to thank Ms. Holt for calling in. I want her to say hello to everybody at home. She has great children, and I want to let her know that diversity is our greatest strength here, and we're going to continue to work to make that a strength for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bader. Brian, is there any more phone calls?
Thank you. I believe there are some more. I'm going to say. We're ready for the next call. Apologize for the little delay, but they should be coming. See if we have more. There. Checking now.
Hello, Peter.
Mr. Harris?
While we're waiting, the previous caller, Ms. Colts, had mentioned something interesting about the HIB law, the harassment, intimidation, and bullying.
Mr. Harris, I don't want to interrupt you, but the caller is here, so I want to make sure we get her in, or him in. Hi, you're on with us. Can you please tell us your name and what part of town you're from?
Sure. My name is Keisha Dabrowski, and I'm in Woodbridge proper.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So I'd like to echo what everyone else has said tonight and congratulate you all on doing an amazing job with COVID-19 and really the transition to the virtual. I have a son who is in 8th grade, and I swear I have the best school district in 2nd grade. I have the best teacher in the school district at Morley School, Mrs. Boss. She was amazing. She came to our house, read to him on our step. I mean, she did everything to. So I'm sure his experience wasn't unique. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I believe you're breaking up a little bit.
Can you hear me?
I hear you now, yes.
Okay. So what I want to share, I want to echo what Amber Jarrett was saying. And, you know, like her, I'm a parent, but I also skirt the line with being an educator as well. I work at Rutgers as an assistant chancellor for diversity and inclusion. And I'd like to put any of your colleagues actually on the Amistad Commission to look at the curriculum for the schools in this area in Middlesex County and also at the state. Because of the experiences that my son has had, there were many times when he challenged and asked questions. So he was learning about George Washington, and he would ask, you know, George Washington was great, but then he owned slaves. And he would be told, Christopher, we're not talking about that. Or when he challenged and asked about Bruce was a great explorer, but wasn't he responsible for the death of the indigenous people? And he would be told, you know, let's not talk about that. And for somebody who knows that critical thinking is something that's being pushed, and that is also something that's really important when they get to college, it was very disheartening to learn that. So as we're thinking about diversity and inclusion, and I appreciate that people are doing the trainings, but as an expert in that area, I know that trainings are not enough, right? So in echoing what most people have said today, I really think that and really strongly urge that you do look at a climate survey, because in the last couple of weeks, I've heard a lot of things that have been disheartening about the experience of students here in Woodbridge. And you know that psychological safety is one of the paramount bases for even education to happen, right? They can't learn without that. So it's been disheartening to hear the stories of Black and brown students and what they're facing, but also white students. Black to any, right? They feel defenseless.
You're starting to break up a little bit again.
You hear me?
Continue. I think we gotcha.
You know, a lot of protests are currently happening because of the physical violence that has been seen on Black people, but violence also happens in our classrooms. It happens in our cafeterias. It happens in our buses. So we need to move beyond, you know, just doing the training. And as Dr. Ibram Kendi, one of the leading scholars in this area, says, you know, policies are either racist or anti-racist. So I'm asking that in addition to the training, that we also interrogate our practices and policies, because that's what holds up systems that oppress people. That's what are we looking at, you know, where students are failing, and if they're marginalized identity students, are we looking at the hidden curriculum? Are we looking at those pieces that are stopping students from being successful? And I think that data would be a great place to start, right? So I know that, and I can tell you for a fact that there is a New Jersey school climate survey that's done in collaboration with the Blaustein School of Public Policy at Rutgers. That's where I'm an assistant vice chancellor. That's an instrument that's available that can be easily used. There are better instruments out there, but something where we can at least get some baseline information about what is the experiences of students and then work from there. So I really do hope that this is something that we're doing beyond you know, just training for teachers, because I have witnessed it myself, and I have spoken up and said something, right? Dr. Muffin, we got an email where you were copied on from me, as well as Dr. Zega, when my son was essentially bullied by a substitute teacher because he was sitting during the Pledge of the Allegiance. And in that email, I had to remind you all of the 1943 Supreme Court ruling, West Virginia State Board of Education versus Barnett, that gave my son free speech clause to sit. And as I mentioned to Ms. Bailout when that happened, yeah, thank you for addressing it, because Christopher has a mother, you know, who will call and who knows the law. But I want to make sure that that doesn't happen to any kid, because the reality is that as a second grader, he felt hurt in that moment. He felt targeted. He felt like, here is this person yelling at me, telling me to stand up when I know this was my right. And kudos to his friends who were upstanders and who said, you know, leave him alone. But as we go into the next school year, elections are happening. This kind of stuff is going to ramp up. Are we truly prepared, and are we preparing our students and staff to deal with this kind of stuff? So thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Should we move on to the next caller?
Yeah, if there's another call, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I believe there are a few more in the queue. All right, we have another one. Hello, please tell us your name and what part of town you are from.
My name is Hikmat Ibrahim. Oh, am I live right now? Sorry.
You are live. You are on.
Okay, sorry.
No
I was listening to it, so it was kind of a jet lag.
Yes.
But my name is Hikmat Ibrahim. I'm from Forge, New Jersey. I'm a former graduate of Woodbridge High School 2019. And I want to first say that I don't want to come off as mean or rude or disrespectful, because I do admire all of your work. But the body language of Mr. Della Petrio, BLG Bushwa, and Mr. Harris was very disrespectful when Charity was talking. As a council member, you are supposed to listen to us and do your job instead of looking down and being on your phone or whatever you're doing. Next, when I look around as the council member, all I see is white people. There's one black person, and that's the problem. It should be diversity. You guys advocate for diversity and inclusion, but I don't see that here. How can you advocate for diversity and inclusion if you don't even understand what black people go through? I want to let you know that black people in this town will not stop until we see justice. Our fight is not over until we see black success in every single kid in this town.
Next, I want to talk about how Mr. Harris and Mr. Mohar were saying that police only act on what they do, on what they are supposed to do in the town, but they do not make Black children feel safe at all. You make us feel like our education is jeopardized and our life is jeopardized. Next thing I want to talk about is the Woodbridge Cares, or anybody, or the administrators in this town or council members. I just find it crazy how a bunch of people, including teachers, can promote things that help out Woodbridge businesses due to COVID-19. It's not a bad thing, don't get me wrong, but fail to publicly acknowledge things that are happening in this town after a protest. You shouldn't wait till a protest happens to take charge, to say something. We shouldn't have to reach out to you. You should reach out to us. We are sad. We are crying. We are upset. If we step out of this town, we can die, and it's sad because I have brothers and sisters. I have people I care about. There's white persons in this town, and I could die by one of them, or I could die by someone else. So what we're saying is we want you to take accountability for your actions. We want you to do more than the minimum. We want you to do more than the bare minimum. Yes, you guys are doing training. That's great, but that's not enough. We need more. We need more from you guys, and it takes more than just a council meeting. You need to sit down with students and really see what they have went through. Hear from parents. Hear us. Understand us, because we understand you. We understand that you guys do not understand what we have gone through, but we want you to understand. We are willing to sit down. So we just want you guys to hear us out so we can make this town better. Woodbridge is not a bad town. Woodbridge has done so much for me. Mr. Lawton has done so much for me. The school has done so much for me, but I know that it has failed a lot of Black students, and I was one of the Black students that did not go through this failure. And as a Black person, I don't want to see any other Black person going through failure. So that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Mr. Delphi,
Mr. Harris.
Ms. Ibrahim, thank you for your comments. I assure you I was not being disrespectful to Charity. I was taking notes. Here's the notes for Charity, Miss Jarrett, Miss Davis, Miss Colts, Megan, and and Miss Dombrowski, I think it was. I'm a note taker. It's how I remember. So I don't want you to think I was playing with my phone. It's over here on the charger. So I was taking notes, and I also took notes from your comments. And we thank you for your heartfelt comments and joining us this evening and being proactively involved in making our district better. So thanks for calling in.
I just wanted to say the same thing. I as well was taking notes. If I was looking down, it was because I was taking notes. I certainly did not mean to be disrespectful.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Also, I have my ear to the speaker of the computer. I'm hard of hearing in my left ear. So that if you see me doing this, it's because I can't hear. I'm hearing my computer. And if I'm on my phone, because we keep a track of the amount of minutes, like when the time is up, so I can advise when the time is up, because I am running the meeting, but I'm not being disrespectful. I'm trying to hear, and I have to put my ear to my computer speaker. So if it came up as I was disrespectful, that's not the intent. That's the farthest from it. But thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Like I was saying, I would just want more work. Like this is just a start. We need more than just this. There needs to be so much work because there's underlying problems that have been digged up, and we just need more. This country is not going to go back to normal. We're pushing to look to something else.
We hear you. We're moving forward.
You guys hear us enough. You guys you guys don't hear us enough because we're not having those faces. I understand it's COVID-19, but after this has all ends, we need to sit down, have a sit down with students, have a sit down with teachers. We need more Black teachers. We need more this. We need so much more.
Actually, the caller before, Dr. Massimino, you had, I believe it was Amber Jarrett. You had, so we started the meeting. Can you just
Sure. Thank you for calling, Ms. Ibrahim. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes. You're still there?
I believe we lost her. So she either hung up or we lost her. I don't know which.
Okay. I'm happy to respond anyway.
She probably
she made some
on TV, but yeah, if you just respond, yes, thank you.
Of course. No, she made some very great points. We had an equity committee in place prior to COVID. Obviously, COVID threw a wrinkle in it, but I don't think anybody on this call or anybody calling in would disagree that the simple existence of COVID puts something like this on the back burner. Far from it. It does make it a little more difficult, as Ms. Ibrahim alluded to get everybody in the same room or to get everybody at a table to have discussion, because we have to find other means to do so. But one of the things we have discussed in the equity committee and it was discussed in the training is, one, getting people comfortable and educated enough to have the discussion, and two, finding the correct format to have those discussions. I agree. I have children in the district. I think there has to be a safe place for students where they feel they can go and have discussion without fear of reprisal or consequence. It is something that is going to take time. You know, are we going to do more than training? 100%. However, we have to take one step at a time. I think we have to be very careful to include an excellent cross-section of stakeholders. You know, Ms. Jarrett's a great example of someone who came to us. We put her on the committee, and I think she's going to be a tremendously valuable asset. This is something that is not a quick fix. It is something that has to be embedded into how we operate as a school district. And I think over the course of the next few weeks and months and years, it's something that we will continue to work on. It becomes a living document and a living existence in our schools, but it certainly won't happen overnight. So I appreciate Ms. Ibrahim's call. I think she raises a lot of valid points, you know, many of which we're working on, but you know, we will continue to put our efforts there.
Mr. President.
Mr. Bader.
I just want to thank ICMAT. I know her well. I know her family well. They're great people. She is a role model. She was a role model for my daughter. So ICMAT, I know I don't fully understand what you're going through, but I want to learn more. I want to help our district move forward and be more sensitive and be more equitable. So I will be reaching out to you, and I would like to meet with you and have further discussions. But thank you for your bravery and you know what you're doing as an advocate. Thank you,
Mr. President.
Dr. Massimino.
Just wanted to throw, Mr. Bader, can you include me on that meeting when you make those arrangements?
Be my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to see if there's more calls. I believe there are. All right. Hi, you're live on the air. Can you please tell us your name and what part of town you're from?
Yes, hi there. My name is Lee Darden. I'm from Avenel, New Jersey. How is everybody today? I'm calling. I have two students in the district. My son is in Colonia High School, and my daughter will be going into Colonia Middle. And I just want to say I love Woodbridge. I love Miss Matola, Miss Schmidt, and Miss Carlos. They're all awesome. So I'm coming here today because I want to speak about something that I heard about happened in the district while I was at a Black Lives Matter protest. This specifically had to do with students of color, basically having to be forced into some sort of like intellectual volley with a teacher about even the existence of police brutality and, you know, the teachers not, you know, negative thoughts about the Black Lives Matter movement. And I just think that that's a specific example of something that I hope doesn't continue into the next school year. I don't think students of color should be put in a position where they have to defend social issues to teachers. And so, you know, I know, you know, you guys have been very receptive. I've been watching the whole meeting. You know, I definitely think you guys are open to things. And I'm just hoping that's an example of something that, you know, you could pay attention to. And then I also just wanted to give a suggestion that for the diversity and cultural curriculum that it seems like you'll be beefing up, I'm just hoping that maybe you definitely ask the parents of Woodbridge. Our town is full of very great people. Even educators, even though they don't work in Woodbridge, we just have we're just lucky. We have a lot of great people. So I'm just hoping that you reach out to the town people for, input on diversity and cultural curriculum. And that's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll go to see if there's another caller. Okay, there's another caller on the way. Hello, you're on with us. Can you please give us your name and what part of town you're from?
Sure, my name is James Dabrowski, and I live in Woodbridge proper.
All right, go ahead. Thank you.
Oh, how you doing? Yeah, I was raised in Avenel. I'm a lifelong resident of Woodbridge Township, K-12, went to Avenel 4 and 5, Avenel Middle Colonia High School, went on to TCNJ, where I am now a Perth Amboy public school teacher for the past 15 years. And first of all, I want to commend everybody for providing feedback. I've been speaking at council meetings for some time now, and it's very rare that we get feedback. We kind of just get ignored. It's kind of, okay, on to the next person, and then back to business as usual. So I want to salute you all for actually providing feedback and taking the time to actually listen, and I hope your comments are sincere and genuine and that you're really taking this into consideration, because I want to echo everything I've heard from all the previous callers, and I want to thank them for having the courage to speak up, because this can obviously be an uncomfortable issue, but it doesn't, it should be, especially for the white people who have white privilege, and where we don't like talking about race. We don't even like the word race. We don't like being called white because it makes us conscious of race. And we have to get used to that. We have to get used to that we have inherited, we benefit from, and we have helped uphold an abhorrent system of white supremacy. And we have to be willing to admit that and accept it, and then be willing to do the work to help dismantle that. It's our mess to clean up. So as a school teacher, I know social emotional learning is the big thing now. It's an aspect of restorative justice. And the social health and well-being and the emotional health and well-being of our students is of the utmost importance. Learning cannot take place without it. And if we don't finally begin to acknowledge and address our violent system of white supremacy and how it adversely affects and impacts each and every one of us and every aspect of our society, then we can never expect to do better as a school district. So there's only one clear way forward, and that's obviously anti-racism. So I'm hoping that Woodbridge is finally ready to commit to anti-racism. And as my wife mentioned, I have a second grade student. He's in Mulberry Street School, and he's had a few adverse experiences. She mentioned the George Washington pushback from his teacher and the Christopher Columbus pushback from his teacher. Another incident I'd like to let everybody know about, there was an assignment where he was asked to make one wish, and he wrote that, "I wish there'd be no more racism." And his teacher pushed back with, well, people can drink from the same fountains now, so it's not as bad. And it was just like, wow. And then he erased his answer and changed it to, okay, I wish everybody gets $1 million. And then he got a star for that. And I thought that was just very awful. And then another assignment, the students were making trifold hats in honor of a man named John Barry, who he said was the first admiral of the United States Navy. And my son had the curiosity to ask, do you know if he was a slaveholder? And the teacher said, oh, I don't know, but that's not really important, which I think it is. And when he came home and told me, we researched it, and sure enough, John Barry was from Ireland, where he experienced some discrimination, then came over here to become an oppressor. And he was a slaveholder. So I completely understand if my son, who's mixed, by the way, my wife Keisha's black, she spoke earlier, and I completely understand if my son does not want to honor a man who's such an awful person. Like, you can't be a good person if you are a slaveholder. So I understand if he doesn't want to make a trifold hat and wear it and celebrate a man who was just horrible to my wife's ancestors. My wife mentioned the Pledge of Allegiance also. So there's more than a few incidents, and he's only 8. He's going in 3rd grade, and he's anxious and excited. But I'm really hoping that we can do something to prevent these instances, not just for him, but for every student in Woodbridge Township School District. And like I said, I'm an educator in Perth Amboy, and I want to make sure to do my part to do the same for my students in Perth Amboy Public Schools, where I'm a teacher. and make sure we're trying to do better there. And I commend Dr. Zega for at least saying something, because my superintendent, Dr. Rahman, has yet to say a word, and that's shameful. So we really got to start having these difficult conversations, and more importantly, putting the policies in place, not just the promises and platitudes, but actual policies to help us do better and move forward as a school district, as a community, and as a society in general. So I want to thank everybody for your time today, and once again I appreciate everybody who spoke before me, and then the feedback from the board and the central administration. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for calling.
All right, thank you. I'm going to see if there's more callers. All right, another caller is coming in. Hello, you're on the air. Please tell us your name and what part of town you're from.
Hi, my name is Gina Fraser, and I'm from Port Reading.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just going to be reiterating a lot of the points that were already said tonight by many of our wonderful callers. And again, I want to thank you guys also for listening with such open ears and being open-minded to what all of us have to say. But I just wanted to say I think we really need to understand the importance of an ongoing training and third-party oversight of what's going on in our district, because I think it's easy for us to understand, overt racism and incidences that occur that are very, in your face, maybe violent or direct. It's a lot harder to understand all of the small nuances that are probably going on a daily basis that as white people, it's very hard for us to understand and recognize. So to ask people to essentially be aware of the things that they're unaware of that they may be doing to harm our students of color is a very difficult thing, and I'm not sure how we're going to be able to address that. So that's my concern. I mean, a good example was earlier in the meeting when Megan mentioned about the removal of the police from schools, and some of the committee members, well, I'm sure very well-meaning, good, decent people said, well, we want to keep our kids safe. Well, yes, we all want to keep our kids safe, but the point that's being missed there is that we have to weigh our options. So one option says having an armed officer walking through the school building will help us if we ever have a mass shooting, if that might happen. But having an armed police officer walking through the building every single day is harming our students of color every single day. And I think we need to those are the kinds of things that we need to recognize, and those are the kinds of things that are only going to be fixed if this is something that is addressed on an ongoing basis and also assessed by someone outside of the district that can really look at it without any bias and any investment other than what really is going to serve our students best.
Still there?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
President?
Mr. Treeweiser.
I just wanted to, I'm sorry I didn't catch the lady's name, but absolutely that is a very enlightening perspective that you're absolutely right. I wasn't thinking about that when I had brought up the bit about using SAC coordinators as opposed to SROs. So certainly those different perspectives are very important for us if we are going to be able to make any meaningful changes. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. Molnar.
If I could add, the officers patrolling the building don't go in the building. They're just scheduled to be at the outside doing perimeter checks. So they
are in the building. I've seen them in the building before.
They get called in the building if there's an incident with the police, with the school principal. It's supposed to be a call to headquarters for that officer to come in the building. The officers that are patrolling the grounds are not supposed to leave the grounds to go into the building. So the officers that Mr. Harris and I were talking about for the earlier phone call, where the outside patrols, those officers are not supposed to be going into the buildings. And if they are, we'll check into that. They're supposed to be walking the perimeter of the building, not going in.
Okay.
Okay. We'll check with our security director to find out what the protocol is.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem.
You guys have a great night.
You too. Thank you for calling. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Is there any more calls, Brian?
There's one or two more.
One more.
This is the final call that we'll have.
Okay.
Should be coming in. Hello, you're on with us. Can you please give us your name and the part of town you're from?
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Jones. I'm from Woodbridge proper. I'm a graduate of Woodbridge High School.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so when I was a student of Woodbridge High School, I've actually seen multiple officers in the building. So I don't know if that's, well, you said that that's not part of their job, but they are in the building throughout the day. So maybe a mandatory training should be your next step in making sure that they're not, because they are in the building throughout the day. That's not my main point of why I called. As we all know from two other callers, Mr. DeLuca has been outed as a racist. He teaches at Woodbridge High School right now. He has debated with Black students about the existence of police brutality, as well as many more disgusting statements that create uncomfortable environments for all students. My question is, and I hope that you all actually answer and not just dismiss or tell me to email a complaint, that moving forward, how will you make sure you're creating safe environments for your students and hiring anti-racist educators? All those who express that the police are keeping us safe in Woodbridge High School should answer this question. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Dr. Massimino, I was going to ask you this earlier. You've obviously heard the same name twice now. I assume you'll be taking a look into that, I presume?
It's a personnel matter, Mr. Harris, so I can't go into any detail.
No, I understand. Yeah, but
I'm just concerned we can't stop a member of the public from making that accusation, but I just want to be very careful what we as board members say, and I agree with Dr. Massimino that this is something that should be addressed by the administration.
Right, and that's all I was getting at.
It's a personnel matter. We really can't comment on it any further here, but Dr. Massimino is aware of it, so he will
Correct.
He will take care of it.
And Mr. President, that's a great point, because the people from the public feel that by us being silent on it, that we're not reacting to it. But we are bounded by laws, because of the personnel issue. And I have mentioned that to people. It's not that we're not looking into it, that we don't care, that there's a process involved in it, and we have to let the process play out.
Yes.
So it's not that we're silent and that we don't care and that we're sweeping it under the rug. Unfortunately, we can't make it public, and that's going to jeopardize everything.
That's
my sorry, not to cut you off, but that wasn't the only thing I asked. My main point is, how will you make sure that anti-racist educators are being hired in Woodbridge Township, and make sure that racist educators are not hired here in the future? That's my question.
So if I could, Mr. President, Gabby and Dr. Massimino, when we do a hiring practice, by law, I don't think we could ask somebody what their political views are.
No, you cannot.
This is what we're bound by, because this issue is so political on and somebody's political views. I don't know how we do that. I mean, how do we ask somebody when they're going for a job, are you racist? I mean, what are they going to answer? They're going to say, no, I'm not racist. So that's why I think we have to think, all together. We got to come up with a way outside the box to come up with, the education of our teachers and when they get these jobs, because unfortunately, no matter what you do, you're never going to change somebody's political view. So I know what you're saying, Gabby. I totally understand, but it's not that easy as just saying, of course we don't want to hire racist teachers. We want every child who comes into our school district who walks through those doors, and believe me, I know you. You know me. You've hung out with my daughter. You've been, to my house. It's something we never want. But the problem is trying to come up with that way, and we all need to work together to find that way where we could get that balance, and we could have, administrators and teachers and educators that are going to make everybody feel safe and be included in the dialogue. So, but it's just not that easy to say that, not to hire racist teachers. We never want to hire racist teachers. I don't think anybody on this board or anybody in the world would want to hire anybody that's racist. All we can keep doing is just trying to educate. I don't know. It's just something we're all going to have to work together. But I mean, we're all going to have to come up with a way to figure it out.
Mr. President?
Weiser.
I'm fairly confident that Dr. Massimino has been working on refining our interviewing and screening process to come up with a better way that we can find the best candidates, and also by reaching out to some of the universities in our area, Rutgers, Kane, Monmouth, and so on and so forth, and trying to develop a process that gives us a much better indication of what type of individual they are. And I know there's been discussion in other entities, and I worked in private sector, and they used to use psychological profiles to try and better determine the ability of an individual. One of the other things we are doing is we are working more diligently, and certainly recognizing the fact that we need to have a administration and a leadership and school staff that is more representative of our community. Subsequently, one of our new supervisors was hired, an African-American gentleman, very brilliant, certainly recognizing the fact that we see that we have a need to be more representative of who we do hire. We're not even close to being there, but we do recognize it, and we are working on it, and we are moving to that path.
Thank you, Mr. Treeweiser.
Mr. President?
Mr. Harris.
Perhaps there's a way in the future, maybe Ms. Murphy can expand on this, that we could put a spot on the website where if any member of the community has concern about an employee of ours, where they can issue a complaint, and it doesn't have to be in a public forum necessarily, where everyone's comfortable and anonymous. And that form, if you will, or that badge on our website would direct an email to the assistant superintendent for human resources, so those complaints are quickly made. Rather than unfortunately, after time passes, these things come to our attention. Perhaps we could be proactive and establish a legal process for people to know. Not everyone knows. Email the superintendent for a complaint such as that. But if we had a spot on the website for complaints regarding personnel matters. Murphy, is that
Harris? Mr. President,
No, I mean, that's certainly something you can do. Yeah. Along the lines of reporting harassment, intimidation, and bullying situations. There's certainly ways to submit complaints and not have them in lieu of having them discussed in a public forum, because it's not fair to the accused necessarily, because they're not here to defend themselves. So I think that's a good idea, Mr. Harris.
And Dr. Massimino?
Yeah, Mr. President, Mr. Harris, the HIPSTER, the HIB format that we use allows for anonymous reporting.
Okay.
If one were inclined, and there was a specific school, they could submit that anonymously, so that could go through the building administration, where that is where the initial HIB investigations start.
All right, maybe we can put that prominently on the website, somewhere appropriate where people know about it.
I believe it's on every school's main page, but I'm happy to check.
All right, I'll take a look at that.
just to elaborate on that, they could also email the board member. I know we had I had gotten one within like the last week of an accusation. Again, it's a personnel matter, so we can't elaborate on it, but it was referred to Dr. Zega to Dr. Massimino, and he's following up on it. But like when someone sends us an email making a complaint, we all read our emails. If it's a if it's a personnel matter or it's a complaint involving an employee, it gets handed over to the superintendent, and it goes over to human resources, and they all get investigated. So if we're silent, it's because we have to be. The person that gets accused has rights, and once it gets referred over, there's a procedure that has to take place, because if we violate the procedure in any way, then that person has a right to come back, and claim malice. So we do hear your your concerns, and we do take action. Oh no, where did I go? Oh.
No, we have you, Frank.
Yeah, have you?
Oh, okay, because I have a blank. I don't see anybody. I have a blank screen.
Oh, here.
Okay.
I think we are out of calls. That is it. There are no more callers.
Okay, because all right. Let me get back to my script here. Hey, if there's no need for if there's any public discussion, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Molnar, seconded by Mr. Treeweiser. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Meeting's adjourned.